If you grew up in the 90s, you belong to a very specific, slightly weird psychological experiment that will never happen again. You are the bridge generation. You're likely the last group of humans who will remember what the world felt like before the internet was a fundamental utility, like water or electricity. You lived through the great digital migration, while your brain was still developing, and that created a unique psychological blueprint. Let's get into it. The first thing we have to talk about is analog patience. If you wanted to hear a specific song in 1995, you didn't search for it. You sat by the radio for 3 hours with a cassette tape, hoping the DJ wouldn't talk over the intro. If you wanted to see your friends, you rode your bike to their house and looked for shoes on the porch. Psychologically, this built a high delayed gratification threshold. 90s kids grew up in a world of waiting. Waiting for photos to be developed, waiting for dial-up to connect, waiting for Saturday morning cartoons. This created a nervous system that was comfortable with the in-between. But then, right as you hit puberty or young adulthood, the world flipped. You went from the Oregon Trail on a floppy disk to a supercomputer in your pocket. This created a phenomenon called digital bilingualism. You are fluent in the digital world, but you still think in analog. You can navigate a complex UI, but you also remember how to read a physical map or use a rotary phone. Psychologically, this makes 90s kids incredibly adaptable. They are the IT support for their parents and the vibe check for Gen Z. Now let's talk about the locus of control and privacy. In the 90s, when you left your house, you were essentially untraceable. There was no GPS, no Find My Friends, and certainly no social media trail. You had what psychologists call unobserved autonomy. This allowed for a level of risk-taking and self-discovery that wasn't being curated for an audience. For 90s kids, identity was something you built in private, not something you performed for likes. This is why a lot of people from this era feel a deep, underlying anxiety about modern surveillance and oversharing. Your brain was wired to believe that being alone meant being invisible, which felt like freedom. There's also the Optimism Hangover. The 90s were characterized by a strange, neon-colored end-of-history vibe. The Cold War was over, the economy was booming, and movies told us that if we just followed our hearts, everything would work out. Then came the 2000s, 9/11s, the 2008 crash, and the climate crisis. Psychologically, 90s kids often struggle with a specific type of cognitive dissonance. You were raised with a maximum stimulation aesthetic, bright colors, loud snacks, extreme everything, but you've had to build your adult lives in a much more precarious, aversive reality. Finally, let's look at micro-tribalism. Before algorithms put us into giant ideological bubbles, 90s kids had subcultures. You were a skater, a goth, a prep, or a nerd. You found your tribe through physical markers, a certain brand of shoes, or a band t-shirt. Because information was harder to get, your niche interests felt more earned. This created a psychology of curation. You didn't just consume culture, you hunted for it. So, if you find yourself getting annoyed when someone skips a song after 10 seconds, or if you feel a strange sense of peace when your phone dies, that's just your 90s wiring checking in. You are the bridge between two different ways of being human. You remember the silence, and you understand the noise. And honestly, that's a pretty fascinating place to be. If you grew up in the 90s, what's the one analog habit you refuse to give up? Let me know in the comments. If you want more deep dives into the psychology of how we became who we are, hit that subscribe button. Stay nostalgic, but stay present. We'll see you in the next one.